Are we still doing this? It's 2024, guys. Come on. This is the year, if any, where Canucks defenseman Quinn Hughes is most likely going to go out there and win himself the Norris Trophy. This is the year where we take a look at how good he has been and how much of a leader he has been for this team. But nah, we are still having these discussions, and these are still going out there and ticking off Canucks fans. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, we are referring to the latest episode of the Spittin Chiclets podcast, and a clip that was shared on their social media, which is, of course, an excerpt from the show, where you have former NHLer Matt Murley going out there talking about how, in his opinion, the Vancouver Canucks cannot win the Stanley Cup with Quinn Hughes as their number one defenseman. Now, the clip attached is about a minute long, it's got Murley on the program, and it pretty much says that, in his opinion, the Canucks cannot win a Stanley Cup with Quinn Hughes as their captain, as their main guy, as their number one defenseman. And the reason is kind of, I don't know. If you listen to the clip, essentially Matt Murley goes out there and talks about how Quinn Hughes is too small. That's it. He's too small to win a Stanley Cup, or he's too small to lead his team to a Stanley Cup because, in his opinion, and pretty much he says it's a 7-game series. There are 4 7-game series. It's a long, tough grind. And then he says something that I don't think is actually correct. If you look at all the past winners, their main defenseman is a big horse. Those are the words that he uses. A big horse. A big guy that can block shots. You gotta be big. You can't just turn on blocking shots. And you've gotta be able to stand strong for these 2 months after you've done that for 82 games. And that's it. That's the clip. The rest of it is just kind of joking around about the Oilers and Ekholm and whatever. But, this is an idea that is so archaic. It's so representative of the olden days of NHL hockey that I think it completely discredits the way the NHL is moving and how this game and sport has grown to a point where guys who are smaller and who are a lot less physically inclined can still have an impact while also being positive play drivers. Quinn Hughes, when he was drafted, this reminds me of the 2018 draft. When they drafted Quinn Hughes, everybody was saying, oh yeah, he's a small defenseman. That's a small defenseman, folks. I think it was Brian Burke who said that on the NBC broadcast or whatever it was. But the problem with Quinn Hughes being small was overshadowed by the fact that Quinn Hughes was just such a darn good defenseman with the puck on his stick and at breaking the puck out, that they were talking about an interview that Quinn Hughes had. I think it was at the international tournament, where they asked him, hey, you're a smaller defenseman, this and that, and what are your setbacks and whatever. And I think Quinn Hughes, he responded saying, I was only on the ice for 1 goal against, guys, the entire tournament. And I remember during certain parts of the World Championships, they tasked Quinn Hughes with defending Connor McDavid, for example, because that was the biggest matchup. They needed somebody who could skate, who could move around, who could do this, who could keep up. And this is part of what made Quinn Hughes so special. It's not that he's a big guy who can block shots and play a defensively minded style in the NHL. It's that when it comes to offensive creativity, his impact and the magnitude of offensive potential he brings makes up for whatever he lacks in size. So for Matt Murley, who, of course, he is an ex-NHLer himself. I'm not going to go out there and dunk on Matt Murley. I saw a lot of Canucks fans doing that yesterday. I'm not going to do that here. Sure, you have an opportunity to do that if you really wanted, because Murley, he only played 62 NHL games before going over to the KHL, and honestly, he's had a pretty interesting career. I mean, he played in South Korea, too. Damn young killer whales in the 2017-18 and 18-19 season. That's kind of nuts when you think about it. I mean, the Asia League is always really nice to see, not gonna lie. But I'm not gonna use this video as an opportunity to dunk on Matt Murley and his career. But I can disagree with the take. I think it's a really weird thing to go out there and say, especially since Quinn Hughes has had playoff success before. Sure, he's a point per game right now with 2 points in 2 games, but in the prior season, in 2020, the bubble year, his rookie season, he had 16 points in 17 games played. So even earlier on in Quinn Hughes' career, before he was a 92-point guy, he was somebody who stepped up big time in the playoff bubble. Now, sure, we had talked about this yesterday in the video talking about Elias Pettersson and Brock Besser and Demko, but The bubble was a unique circumstance because there wasn't the lingering effects of an 82-game season and guys getting bruised up and banged up looming over their heads as the playoffs began like there is this year. There was a 5-month break in hockey before the bubble playoffs began, which is why you could debate guys like Elias Pettersson were doing really well, because we've seen it at the beginning of seasons. Petey looks good. He always seems to trail off towards the end of it, but with this being the first season in 23-24 where he's played 82 games, and now he's looking not himself, he's not playing well, etc., etc., that's kind of where real growth comes. But for Quinn Hughes, he has still been as solid as he has been. He played 27 minutes in Game 2. That's a guy whom the Canucks relied upon. And sure, they lost 4-1, but you still see the offensive creation, you see the ability on the blue line. The fact is, Quinn Hughes not being a big guy who blocks shots doesn't align with what the Canucks have as a vision for their team, and it doesn't really align with some past winners too. I mean, Quinn Hughes doesn't need to be the big brute blocking shots because you've got 4 guys who can do that. Ian Cole, Nikita Zadorov, Tyler Myers, and Carson Soucy can all do that. And Cole is the smallest out of the bunch at 6'1". Soucy 6'5", Myers 6'7", Zadorov 6'7", whatever they are, like, those are big behemoths of guys. That's half your decor that's all capable of doing that. You don't need that out of Quinn Hughes just because he's the number 1 guy. And when it comes to former Cup winners, I mean, Chris Letang wasn't necessarily a big shot-blocking beast. You don't really have that out of Cale Makar. You don't really have that out of even Scott Niedermayer is a guy that wasn't really big or known for his huge physicality. Like, sure, you got guys that can do that. The Chris Prongers, the Petrangelos, the Charas, of course, when he won a Stanley Cup in 2011, cough cough, but not every team needs that necessarily to be a Stanley Cup champion. Sure, it certainly helps, but singling out Quinn Hughes just because he is the top dog in this decor and he doesn't happen to be the big dude, like, that's just not really the right way to think about it, in my opinion. Like, the Canucks have other defensemen that fill that need. So this idea that was rolling around in social media, and of course it was rolling around. I mean, I saw this posted everywhere. Everybody was talking about it on Instagram. I mean, the clip itself has 800,000 views on Twitter, and a whole bunch of replies are going out there and talking smack about it. But at the end of the day, it's 2024, and we are still having arguments about Quinn Hughes and his size being a problem. So we'll see where exactly this argument goes as Quinn Hughes' career goes on. We'll see how it holds up in Game 3. That's happening later today at 5 p.m. PST. It's in Nashville. The games are starting earlier on Sunday, Game 4. That's going to be even earlier as well. So we'll see what happens with that. Either way, though, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Matt Murley's kind of, I don't know, interesting segment on Spittin Chiclets. I wanted to respond to this just because it was like, yeah, it's a really big deal, I feel, to talk about the Vancouver Canucks number 1 star defenseman in this way, because you're going to definitely tick off a whole bunch of Canucks fans by saying it like that. But either way, thoughts in the comment section below. Heading into Game 3, what are your opinions about this matchup? What are your opinions about the comments made on Quinn? And what are your opinions about how he's going to fare in the playoffs as his career goes on? 82 games played, long, grueling regular season, and then followed up by 2 months of playoff hockey. Do you think Quinn has it in him to grow into a guy that can take it? I think he can, especially if the Canucks continue to bolster up the rest of the decor with big physical guys who can do the shot blocking for Quinn. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this British Astros 99. And bye.